Welcome to the back porch. Today, we're opening up a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, Francis Coppola. And we're opening up about the ability to be ourselves in a world that wants us to be somebody else. We begin with a poem. The title is Be. Be you. Be beautiful, loving, sweet, open. Be joyful, hopeful, peaceful, observant. Be gentle, patient, loving, and kind. Be compassionate, passionate, merciful. Be wise, understanding, transparent. Be my window through which my light will shine. Be you, so that all you encounter will glimpse me. Be you. That's all. That's enough. So, welcome, Antonio. How
Hi,
are
I'm
you?
doing great, Bonnie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well too. Thank you. So, tonight's topic, we're going to talk about what it means to be ourselves in today's world. Do any of those words that were in this poem resonate with you?
All of it. To be or not to be. I think the talks about being kind, which I sometimes struggle with that. I
Oh,
mean, not in a bad way, but I think it's. I guess when you're struggling and you think about, you wish people would be more compassionate, right? And I think that helps you understand that sometimes people are going through things, and maybe the relationships that we have and how we handle that could be, I don't know, maybe we could be kinder to people. So
hmm.
it's a good reminder to be kind. If I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you chose the word kind because it seems to me that we have kind of a short supply of kindness. In the news every day you hear about road rage
Yes.
incidents. In the political climate, people are not being kind to one another, and it just seems to me that our ability to be respectful of others seems to be eroding, and so kindness is exactly what you described. It's being aware that what another person is experiencing may be different from what you're able to observe.
Right.
And because we never know the kinds of things that people are going through, we our tendency is to judge and to then base our judgments on, a word or a phrase that somebody used, or maybe even body language, or
Yes.
maybe even a rumor of something that they think people have said. And it can affect the way that we treat each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what about you? What word from this poem spoke to you? It's I mean, a lot about being, and there's people say that you can be anything you want in the world.
Well, because I wrote this poem in a period of my life where I was trying to rediscover who am I. And just a little background on that. I was married for 28 and a half years, and my husband passed away. And in the grieving process, I came to recognize that what I had worked on for 28 and a half years was becoming one. And then when the other half was gone, it made me wonder about my own existential reality. So the poem was kind of a way of affirming what others would tell me when I would say, I don't know who I am anymore. And they were like, oh, of course, you're Bonnie. You're still you. And I said, yeah, but who is that? And so all of these words that came, I see them as descriptors of who I can be, or
Yeah.
who I might still be.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make a distinction between being and doing, because I remember this past Lent when you were preaching the mission over here at St. Gerard's, and the introduction to you, I was very impressed when I was doing it because there was a lot of titles in it. That you're an artist and you sing and you write poetry. You've been a catechist. You're a professor. You have a doctorate. So there's all of these things that that are added to you. But that's at the end of the day, that's a lot of titles or things that you do. But who are you aside from that? And I think what you were talking about in terms of being married, that you had been married for over 20 years, and that was part of who you are, and it's almost like you are being defined by your marriage, but then your loved one passed away, right? And so then there's like that part of you missing, and so who are you after that? Because even in a marriage there is that sense of being one, but there's also the sense of individuality, right? And so I think sometimes people in any kind of relationship, whether it's a loving relationship or a friend relationship, people may get lost in that, uh, becoming one with a person to where you lose yourself, right?
Exactly, exactly. When I taught high school and we would do senior retreat in particular, one of the exercises we would do is we would pair the students up, and one person would ask the question, "Who are you?" and the other person would try to answer. And it was really interesting because the person asking the question, all they could do was just keep asking the question, "Who are you?" And it was really interesting that at the very beginning, it was easy to say, "I'm a student, I'm a senior, I'm a sister,
Yeah.
and then after the first descriptors were said, it's like there were deep pauses as to, okay, so those are my roles, but who am I really? So it
Yeah.
was really a good exercise of calling people to look beyond um, our relationships that define us, and to look beyond the things that we do
Yeah.
that describe us, to really find our essence. Who
Yes.
are we in our truest sense?
And I think there's also a difference between who are you and how people perceive you, or who people perceive you to be. And I think that's where self-knowledge really comes in. Like, you have to, it takes a lot of work to get to be able to discover who you are, because at the end of the day, in all of the relationships that you have with people, you're a different person. And some people may say, oh, he's very kind, and some people say he's not kind at all, and it all has to do with a relationship or an incident, or whatever happened. And I remember many years ago when I had first come into religious life, I, I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself, but at the time, I didn't. I don't think I knew myself as well as I know myself now, and I still have a lot of work to do. But I think it was when I was in the novitiate. It dawned on me. I don't even remember how this happened, but it dawned on me that I was an extrovert. And for the longest time, I thought that I was an introvert because I thought I was shy, and I thought I like to spend time, on my own, which I do.
Mhm.
But I thought I was very shy, and I think what I was is that I was insecure, not that I was
Mm.
shy. And when I told some of my friends that I knew from before I joined religious life that, oh, guess what? I'm an extrovert. My friends were like, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a secret to you.
Yeah.
We could see that you are.
But I didn't know, and to me it was very shocking that people knew that I was an extrovert, but I didn't realize that I was an extrovert. And I because I didn't know myself very well at that point. And so as I continue to learn more about myself and to do more work, become more confident, I understood how my friends were able to tell, because there's, just who I am, right? But there is that sense of, there's something about you that th- is transmitted to people,
Mhm.
essentially, that this is who you are. But then there's also so much that people perceive about you that is not you. And so, and I think that's why I go back to this idea of self-knowledge, because people are gonna say you're this and you're that, and you have to know yourself well enough to accept that yes, there are certain things that you are and there are certain things that you're not.
Hmm. Well, you know the saying, perception is reality.
Yes.
So, how people perceive us is what they assign to us. And you're right on with the self knowledge is so important because it doesn't, it, we are not here to live up to other people's expectations.
Yeah.
In our essence, we belong to God. And so, really, who we are to please is God, but how we do that is how we treat others, because it's all tied up together.
Yeah.
One of the really ancient things that I remember about getting to know oneself is something called the Johari window. Have you
Hmm.
heard of that?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's you picture a four-pane window, and in one pane is your image of yourself as you know yourself. In another pane, there's an image of yourself that other people see, but you don't see. And then there's another image of yourself that both of you can see about who you are. And then there's one pane that is unknown to anybody. So it's like the pain of becoming. It's like,
Mm.
who are you going to become? How are you going to unfold in your life? How are you going to embrace the changes that life brings to you and the challenges that
Yeah.
life brings? How at the end of your life are you actually going to be?
Yeah. I think it is a real mystery, and it's very interesting the person that we end up becoming. Because I think if anybody would have told me, I don't know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago that I was end up where I am at today, I probably would have laughed. And well, you know my story, my vocation story
But
of
our listeners don't.
yes, exactly. I was gonna go there. You know my vocation story where when I joined the Redemptorists, I was a brother, and I felt very very strongly, confidently called to being a brother. And in the small ministries that I was doing, I felt very fulfilled about being a brother. But when I joined the Redemptorists, I joined specifically to become a brother. And people asked me about how come you're not becoming a priest and whatever. And I would also explain I just don't feel that that's what God is calling me to. And I had never felt such a sense of purpose in my life as to when I decided to become a brother. And so I remember having a conversation with my mother about why I didn't want to become a priest, which was essentially I don't feel called to that life. And I said to her, if I ever feel that God is calling me to become a priest, I promise you and I promise God that I will be very generous in my answer and I will go for it. But as it stands today, I really think that it would be easier for me to live religious life than to become a priest. And it's not that I was intending to live religious life. I was very happy in religious life. And eventually I ended up, feeling that God was calling me to the priesthood. And I went through a bit of a crisis because of that, because I just couldn't understand how, if I felt so fulfilled as a brother, I felt called to the priesthood, and kind of begrudgingly, I went into the priesthood. I feel pretty happy with my answer. I feel very at peace with it, but it was a struggle. And I think if when I joined the Redemptorists or in the first couple of years, somebody would have told me you're gonna end up becoming switching to the priesthood track and going to become a priest, I would have probably laughed and said there is no way that I'm going to do that. And then I am here, several years later, studying to become a priest.
Hmm. Isn't it funny how life takes a few twists and turns that you don't
Yeah.
expect? So how did you discern? You were happy as a brother,
Hmm.
and now you're happy on the track, toward priesthood, but there was a moment of transitioning and questioning.
Yeah.
But what were some of the signs that you saw or perceived that you were being called to something more
Yeah.
than brotherhood?
So I had very clear in my mind that, reasons why I wasn't called to become a priest. And when I was first starting my vocation, I don't know, over 12 years ago, when I saw the priest celebrating mass, I never saw myself celebrating mass, and yet I felt very called to some kind of life that was that resonated with the priesthood, and I just couldn't articulate it until I heard about religious brothers. Everything made sense to me, and I remember because I was in groups of discernment, with other young men and young women who were discerning religious life, and when I was talking to other guys that were discerning the priesthood, a lot of them would say things like, I cannot wait to be in the confessional, I cannot wait to celebrate mass, and that just never resonated with me. I felt called to ministry, and I felt called to, again, to some sort of life like that. And when I heard about religious brothers, in my head was like, this is why the priesthood never made sense in my vocation story, that I felt called to this, and so the brothers just fit so perfectly with me. um, when I came to San Antonio, it was still during the pandemic, and I started doing ministry at UIW in campus ministry. And so, because we couldn't get priests sometimes, I was asked to do communion services, and I was very happy doing that. And I remember even saying to myself, that this is a way that as a brother I can bring Jesus to people without having to be an ordained minister. And I was doing that for about a year. And one time I remember in my prayer thinking, feeling very happy about what I was doing and how, I'm bringing Jesus to people. And then sort of in my prayer, it was almost like a voice in the very back, that said something like, what if there's no priest to consecrate the Eucharist? Then who's going to bring it to the people? And I kind of stopped, and I was like, why did I ask myself that? And I was like, I'm not even gonna go there. But that was sort of the initial thought. The other reason, in terms of feeling called to the priesthood, is being in the confessional. I thought it was beautiful ministry, and I still think it is, but I just didn't feel like it was my place. Like, I didn't see myself doing that. And that was the other part of that is so essential to being a priest. Celebrating the Eucharist, celebrating the sacraments, right? It's very essential. And I thought, yeah, because of that I couldn't be. And even in this reflection of, who's going to bring Jesus, in the Eucharist to people if there's nobody to consecrate it, it was this idea of, in my head there's always been the idea of, God loving us so much that he always puts means for us to go back to him even when we go astray. And I think it was the idea of being an instrument of God so that his people could be reconciled back to him in the friendship that was lost, or that is lost through sin. And it was those two elements that started this roller coaster of emotions, because then it started to really confuse me. And at first I was wrestling with this idea of like, do I want to do that, or is this just something that is in the back of my head? Because in the past I had asked myself, honestly, do I really want to be a priest, or do I want to remain a brother? And I always felt very much at peace with saying, no, I feel that God is calling me a priest. When this started to come up in my prayer and in my heart, and I asked myself the question, do I think I want to be a priest? I said no, but I wasn't at peace with it right away. And so that's what led me to discern a little bit more. Towards the end of that year, I had every month we have a meeting with our formators, and at the end of that semester, I mean, it was a crisis for different reasons. Part of it was my vocation, part of it was other conflicts, and at the end of that, I was sort of very confused as to what my role was, what my place was, what I wanted to do, and in that last meeting I had with my formators, one of them said, I don't want to offend you with this question, but I just feel like a lot of the ministry that you've been doing lately, it's kind of borderline clerical. And have you thought about, maybe, if this could be a possibility? And he said, again, I don't want to assume anything, I don't want to offend you, just kind of want to see what your thoughts are. And I had been thinking on whether or not I should say anything of what was going on in my head at the time. And when this formator said that to me, it was like a light bulb went on, or
Mm.
like it made sense. I felt that the Holy Spirit is at work. because it's not just me thinking it, somebody else from the outside is just trying to see what is happening. And so, and that at that meeting I said I wasn't planning to say anything, but actually I have been thinking about this and I've been struggling with it, and I want to take time to discern that. And so that's once I finally said yes, I was not externally happy. I didn't feel this super joy of, oh my God, like when I first joined to become a brother. But there definitely was a sense of peace, and I think that's the distinction of being happy in a way that is peaceful, even when you don't feel this bubbly joy inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I feel like, the work of the Holy Spirit in you.
So, what I hear is that it's important for you to listen to what other people are telling you, and also listen for that voice of God that's deep inside of
Yes.
you. And then also listen to your own gut reaction to what you're hearing.
Yeah.
So it's a multi-layered openness that you have to have
Yeah.
in order to be able to decide, okay, so I'm hearing this. I think I need to pay attention to this,
Yeah.
particularly if people keep asking you. And I was around you when people were asking you,
Yes.
so why aren't you on the track to priesthood? Really? You're going to just stop at being brother? What does a brother do? At which I would always try to,
Mediate.
reinforce with you that
Yeah.
whatever it is that God is calling you to, if you're in a community that is supposed to be both brothers and priests, then doesn't it make sense that some of you are brothers?
Precisely.
So I was trying to help protect, I guess, your vocation
Yeah.
to the brotherhood. As you recall, I even introduced you to other lifelong
Yes.
brothers, to say he's struggling, talk to him,
Yeah.
see, maybe he's not cut out for it, but you would know. And
Yeah.
so that was I that was sort of my way of trying to help you. So
Yeah.
when you did tell me that you were changing tracks, I guess I was sort of surprised, but then not really,
Yeah.
because on the one hand, I saw the struggle that you were kind of digging in your heels about. No, I need to be a brother,
Yeah.
while at the same time you were being kind of nudged in another direction.
Yeah.
So it takes courage, really. And I think that openness to um, allow yourself to be formed
Hmm.
in the way that God is calling you.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, something needs to be said about that, because mm, I mean, we hear a lot of voices in advertising about you can be whatever you want, and really you can. I mean, it's 2025. You can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. But is that really what's gonna bring you happiness? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not that happiness that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but the happiness that gives you peace
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. And so that's where listening to the voice of God is important, and listening to what God is telling you in and through other people, because at the end of the day we're social creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and we do need each other to help us figure it out. We cannot deal with things in a vacuum or just by ourselves, because there's always all these kinds of things. So I think, because I had a spiritual director at the time, and a therapist, and that helped me a lot as well, because my therapist is Catholic, and he was a priest for many years and ended up leaving the priesthood. And so he was very instrumental as well in helping me figure out what it was that I was doing. And it was like a sounding board of, this is what is happening. And so having those two elements of a therapist, a spiritual director, and friends that would listen really helped. So I think people can really benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have all the answers within you to figure it out.
Right. I've heard it said that vocation or ministry is the place where your talents meet the hungers of the world.
Mm.
And so your ability to respond to what you see as the hungers of the world, that, I mean, because obviously you're not the Messiah. None of
Right.
us are, right? But and not that we're going to save the world, but we can make it a little bit better by bringing our gifts to bear in
Yeah.
those places where we see people in pain, or gifts and talents that we've been given that can just bring a sense of, I don't know, joy,
Yeah.
peace.
And I think it also brings a sense of being, of who you are, of purpose. And I don't know, I think it was Mother Teresa who said that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, right? And so you've had a lot of experience giving yourself in service to other people. I don't know if you've ever had this sense of finding yourself or finding who you are through ministry, or yeah, through giving of yourself essentially.
And that's a good question, because I started doing that like almost automatically.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say way back when I was 15, I was I I was called into music ministry,
Yeah.
and just kind of thrown into it. I'll never forget. It was 11:30 mass, which was titled the youth mass, but we had no musicians, right?
Okay.
So the pastor just right before mass, it was one of those days that I was actually early for mass, because I usually am one of these at the last minute kind
Good
of
Catholic.
person. It's very Catholic. But I sat up front because I knew myself, and if I didn't sit up front, I'd be distracted. So I was sitting in the front bench. The pastor comes out and says, "Come here." So I went up and I said, "Yes, Father." He says, "I want you to lead the singing this morning. Here's 4 songs. I want you to lead the singing." It's like 11:25. Mass is at 11:30. And I'm like, I didn't even have time to think about, I don't think I want to do this. I just, my parents had always taught me, you always say yes to priests and sisters.
Yeah.
You treat them with the utmost respect. So I did. That was like being thrown into the 9 foot end of the pool.
Yeah.
And so I started singing, and then I learned how to play guitar.
Oh.
And okay, here's another story. Me and 4 others were all learning guitar. This was our freshman year in high school, and one of my friends says, "Hey, let's play for the 11:30 mass. We can help. You can help you sing." And so so we did it for about 3 weeks. After about 3 weeks, one of the parishioners came up and said, "Girls, it's so wonderful that you want to be of service, but you all need to practice." Because we were at the stage of, okay, we knew 3 chords. And in those days, that's really all you needed to know to play a guitar
Yeah.
mass. But we were not real adept at changing chords quickly.
Mm.
So it would be ding, ding,
Oh.
pause,
Yes.
ding, ding, pause. And after about 3 weeks, the congregation was like, "Ah," you know, so, I mean, yes, our feelings were hurt, but
Yeah.
they had a point, and that's one of the things, is that you need to cultivate the gifts that God gives you. You don't just put it out there without trying to hone your craft.
Yeah.
So that's the story of how I got thrown into ministry. I didn't even have to think about it. It just, yeah, and I lost myself in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I did stop playing. I did. I mean, I still went to mass, but I didn't do music until when I was 18, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt, okay. Now I'm more confident. I have more skills, more abilities. I had taken some voice lessons, and so I started again, and I continue, and then it's been continuous for, I want to say it's about 50 years now. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So that's been the constant ministry. There's a lot more, but
Yeah.
I think our guests are probably wondering, okay, so what does this have to do with being? You know, it's like, well, we do out of who we are.
Yes.
And so, the essence of who we are, the being that God created, is how we respond to the world around
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think if you think about just existence, being in general, what are the odds and what are the chances that you are in the world today? you know, the chances that your parents met, the chances that you were the one who made it, and that you were here. And I don't think it's something that we think about it, but when you do think about it, it's very surreal to say it's very possible that I could not have been here. I mean, it's almost like mathematical precision that we're here, right? And so everybody has a purpose. I think. I mean, that's what they tell us, that you have a purpose, and there's always this idea of you're here to be happy, but I don't think happiness is defined properly, right? It's always I think we always associate it with something that is like when you get a good feeling of happiness, and not happiness in the sense of even when I'm struggling, even when things aren't going 100%, I still have this sense of happiness that is more associated with peace and acceptance, right?
And a
Because
deep joy,
yes,
that goes beyond happiness.
yeah,
Happy, I think our expectation of it is that we should always just feel like, yes, the world is ours, and we're just here to. It's all about me.
yeah,
I think that's how we view happiness. Is that I am this wonderful person that everybody pays attention to. I'm happy that life is turning out the way that I want it to.
yeah,
um, but I think happiness is fleeting, and it's sometimes compared to a butterfly that comes and lands on your shoulder.
hmm,
It comes at the time that you need it. But I think beyond happiness is joy
yeah. Oh,
that's
okay,
connected with our deep connection with God,
yeah.
who brings us joy.
Yeah, and I think the other question, because we're talking about what does this have to do with being, because we've talked a lot about ministry, and you very rightly pointed out that we do out of who we are, and I think aside from what we do in ministry and career and whatever, how do you separate that from, because at the end of the day you still do all of those things, and that plays a big part of who you are, but there's a point where all of that stops. And
Exactly.
you were talking earlier about your marriage, and your husband passed away, and but you're still here. And so how do you make that distinction between who you are and what you do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially as I am looking at retirement
Hmm. Yeah.
and a whole different way of being, it really is the question that I'm grappling with is, does who I am go away when I stop doing what I'm
Yeah.
doing? And I want the answer to be no.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but I'll find out, and maybe the podcast will. Uh,
Will get us there. But I think it has to do also with the question of authenticity, and because you can still be yourself and be an authentic person in all the different areas that you perform, but also when you're not performing in all of these capacities, you're still yourself, and you still have to deal with yourself.
right.
And so I think the constitutions and statutes of the Redemptorists talk about this very beautifully, because we are missionaries, and we've been in the church for almost 300 years. So we have guys that all ages, younger and older, all above the age of 21, or no, actually all above the age of 18. But all the professed ones are over 21. Anyway, our constitutions and statutes talk about how, by virtue of your vows, you are a missionary, whether you are out in the mission or if you are retired, and you're living in the nursing home, you're
Hmm.
still a missionary. So there's that sense of being that is not defined by doing,
Right,
right? And so I
right.
think it's that authentic living of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
living your life, who you are, regardless of what you are doing.
Giving witness
Yeah.
by the way you treat people,
Yes.
the way that you are in relationship with others, the way that people feel comfortable around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your essence. It's the authentic self
Yeah.
that people will encounter, no matter what you do or
Or
are able to do or
yeah.
not able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even I think if we push it even further, beyond this life, when we're gone, it's also the legacy that you leave behind, right? So how you live your life, and how you live this life, when once you're gone. So what did you leave behind? What is it that people remember? What sort of memories you created, or how I guess somebody was talking about how you made people feel. Like, people may not always remember what you said, but how you made them feel.
That's a quote from Maya Angelou.
Is it okay? There
Yes,
you go.
yes.
Yeah, we're a bunch of poets around
We are. We love
here.
poetry.
We do love poetry. Yes, that is a good way of
It's a
connecting.
way of relating to the world that is beyond the doing.
Yes,
It's a way of being.
precisely. And that poem that you opened up with, our very very first episode of the podcast, on being, you wrote it.
I did.
And but that's not the only poem you've written. In
I
fact, for our audience, uh, Dr. Bonnie Abadi, also known as just Bonnie, um, is a award-winning poet, right? So you've written extensively. Is it extensively? I mean, you've written a lot. You've done a lot of
I have
works.
volumes of poetry. They're not all published,
Mm-hmm.
but some have been published in Ligurian magazine.
Uh
That
huh.
was the first place that I actually had some published, and that's where I got my award
Oh,
for. Yes, I was really surprised. It was best original poetry.
wow.
Yes, um, Catholic Press Association. Yes, and that was in 2019.
Yeah.
So I've been able to say I'm an award-winning poet.
Yes.
And then I have a couple of publications.
Mm-hmm.
My first book that I wrote was Believing While Grieving, and
Yeah.
it's kind of the journey that I took through grief to triumph,
Yeah.
or through the pain into resurrection.
Yeah. I actually read that one a couple of weeks ago, during Holy Hour.
Oh
I
wow,
was I was sitting in Holy Hour, and I that was my spiritual reading. So
fantastic!
yeah.
Thank you.
And you have another one,
I
right?
have one that's actually going to be released on
Oh.
October 25th. There will be a book signing at Barnes and Noble
Uh-huh.
on San Pedro and Isom Road, a little bit north of 410,
Mm-hmm.
at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I want to invite our listeners to come out and
Yes.
what
Say
I've
hello.
never done a signing through a bookstore before,
Uh-huh.
so this will be new. I don't know how it'll work, but the manager says all you have to do is show up and bring people who will buy your book. So,
There you go.
so I'll show up, and I hope that there will be people who come to buy the book.
Hopefully there'll be people. Yeah, that's very good. I'll definitely be there.
Fantastic,
Yes. I may not
fantastic.
buy a book though.
Well, that's okay, because you already have a copy.
No,
So
I haven't gotten the newest one. I have the Believing While
you
Grieving.
have the Believing
Yeah,
While Grieving.
but that's a signed copy. But this one I haven't gotten it yet. But I will
This new
eventually.
one, the title is Watching While Waiting, and
Mm-hmm.
it's surviving the pandemic through reflective practice.
Okay.
So it's a combination of the first half of it is my playing around with colors, and then the second part are kind of prayer, poem reflections of what was going on in 2020 and my trying to make sense out of it. The back porch was really an essential part of surviving
Yes.
the pandemic, and so it's kind of like the back porch became a place of safety and peace
Yeah.
during that time, and it continues.
Yes, it's still continued. It's a in religious life we call places like this a green place.
Yes,
And
yes.
you get several seminarians around here. Sometimes it's a safe space and a good place to be. And this is where we're recording now at the back porch. We'll attach a picture of the back porch. So if the audience, if they're just listening on YouTube and you went away from your device, you can go back right now, and it's a picture of the beautiful porch where we're recording. We're putting it out there right now, and you can see it there.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so, do you have any question for our listeners, on being, as we're going away?
Yes.
Anything you'd like
Who
to
are
say?
you? That would be my question to our listeners.
Yeah.
In your deepest self, who are you? Who are you apart from what it is that you do? I'd like for you to just think about that and maybe take it to prayer. And if you like to journal, maybe you can journal about it. If you like to express yourself through painting, drawing, I would invite you to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a nice little invitation.
Who are you? That's
Who
very good.
are you?
Well, thank you very much for this invitation, for starting this new podcast called Open Up, and we'll see our guests, or we'll catch our guests next time on the next episode of Open Up, where we'll open up another bottle of another wine, and we'll open up about something else. So, looking forward to catching everybody on the next one. Leave us your comments. Please like the video, and we'll catch you next time. We are your hosts,
Bonnie Abity.
and I'm Antonio Montoya, and we'll catch you next time. Bye
Okay,
bye.
bye.